And we welcome Robert Baum. Robert is past Dean of Lebanon College and has quite a background in education and receiving his undergrad, his master's, and received his doctorate from the Royal Society. And we welcome you to the program today.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we were talking about Lila, if you want to
Right.
tell them what Lila is all about.
Well, it's basically an institute, what's called an embedded education program with the Lebanon Opera House. When I came through Lebanon, I'd been off education for about 3 years. I've been producing and writing up until about 2011. I was at River Valley as a professor. And in that time, I started to think about, bigger picture education, small picture education. And where we were having success was with municipalities around the world. One in London, which was called the King's Cross Hub. And then there's a small seminary that's starting in Oxford, basically a secular seminary. And I started wondering about here. And at the same time, the president of River Valley, Ron Byron, started to talk to me about, revitalizing the liberal arts. And I thought, well, this is the natural place to try this because the history of Lebanon College has been one of extraordinary success in general education and liberal arts. And when the college closed, that didn't stop this idea. And Heather Clow at the Lebanon Opera House and others in town, we've been talking for months already about trying to bring something, a little bit of what you had, namely an open community resource, but also something more global, something that taps into a very broad sense of what education is in terms of business and liberal arts and humanities. And so it ballooned at first, then we brought it back down. And the LILA is the Lebanon Institute for Liberal Arts. And that, the idea was fast. Doing it, of course, takes time. But the enthusiasm so far of the town, and as I get talking more, you're going to hear my Long Island accent come out more. The enthusiasm, did you hear that? The enthusiasm, hey, how you doing? It really was fast from past presidents, past deans, current faculty, current administration, town officials, underwriters, and so forth. What Lila really was to do is show the world what a town can do. Namely, we lost the college. The college died, and you're in pastoral care. At one time in my life, I was tapped to be in pastoral care, and that came back first. This idea of this is going to hurt people. I want to have something, not necessarily to reassure people, but to let them know that just because one thing is gone, it doesn't mean this great area is going to lose its access to the talent that Lebanon College used to draw and had drawn for many, many years, almost 60 years. 60 years. Mm. And so between my embedded education platform, this need for broad community education, but done at a cost-effective, small way, not with lots of mortgages, not lots of buildings, but embedding and or partnering, possibly an anchor again in this community, is really what Lila seeks, and that means we have a very broad vision, namely trying to bring in TEDx and Royal Society level speakers, but also having those people give talks and teach classes and give workshops that are going to attract a very broad spectrum of the community. Because a lot of times what happens with these programs is they wind up becoming elitist. They become very much, only people who can afford $48 can come to it. We're seeking a low cost, possibly even with good underwriting, free and open to the public, lectures and talks on the big scale. And on the small scale, we're looking at basically trying to provide the critical skills, communication, that we're going to help people really adapt to the knowledge economy. And actually define that, because I think a lot of times we use that word, but we don't know what that means. To know something in an economic way means I'm trying to be more entrepreneurial with what I know. And honestly, that's what I first encountered when I moved up here in '93. I told this story at the Rotary Club last week, basically coming to the Woolworth and hearing Shakespeare behind me, wondering why I was hearing Shakespeare at a Woolworth, and being very grateful again that it wasn't just in my head, which happens a lot, but realizing that behind me, I was at the lunch counter, literally, was a group of people reading Shakespeare. I believe it was Lear, because I remember thinking, please no, I don't want to lose my mind while hearing the third act of King Lear, where Lear loses his mind. And I turned around and there was Lebanon College, a 7-person seminar in the Woolworth with their Riverside Shakespeare's open reading and sharing, and I thought that was an amazing thing. And that's one of the first images that came to me when I received the news that the college was closing. That image. And I don't know what this means, providential maybe, but I was in the library doing some work when the news arrived, and technically the table I was at was where that lunch counter used to be. And it doesn't take a deeply spiritual person, even though I am, to realize that there's something to that, and that gave me pause. And even though we didn't know what would be next for liberal arts, or next for any kind of academics, because our primary need was the students, period. Many of us lost many nights' sleep just trying to make sure there's pathways for these students, and thankfully I've been in touch with River Valley and CCV, and those students are doing well. Some have gone to other schools, some have left the area, but we did our best to take care of them. The second step was, what are we going to do? I'm here. This is my home. This has been my home since '93, except for 3 years when we lived in Minneapolis. We have been in and around the Upper Valley since my early 20s, and I have 4 boys, and I want them raised here, and I want them raised in an environment that, nurtures their curiosity and their sense of altruism, which is so interesting in my 15-year-olds and above. There's this amazing, you would think growing up in the last 10 years where everything's so cynical and crazy cynical, there would be a loss of the millennials. They would just kind of like shut down. You wouldn't see them. They're not. They're asking questions. They're wondering, what's the pathway out? How do I, not just survive, but how do I gain wealth? How do I, contribute to my community? These are questions that, we were asking when I was 14, 15, 16 years old back on Long Island, but we were also in Boy Scouts and Jazz Club and, lacrosse camp and honor societies and that stuff. No, we were inside institutions. And a lot of the students that I encountered, both in terms of secondary school and in terms of higher education, really didn't have that. And that was the third thing. I want a place where people can gather, like almost a meeting house styled organization.
Would you talk a lot about the Opera House, which is really wide and big. Would you, if it came about that you could use Lebanon College again, would that be a venue that you would look at? Be
absolutely.
Interested in?
I think so. I think if the college building became multiple use, if there was, may I share my vision?
Go right ahead.
If there was an Apple store and a Starbucks in that building, like in the basement, and you actually capitalized on where the activity used to be. I mean, 10 years ago I used to come to the college for coffee house,
We notice it even today, you went in the mall at noontime,
Right.
it's really, compared to how we used to be with Lebanon College there. Now, this is really, you're not looking at a degree granting
No.
type program.
No.
Nuts and bolts, I get my associates or whatever. It's, how would you?
I would describe it as,
as?
well, I would just describe it as academic support, which is what colleges and universities used to have, whole departments dedicated to skill set building and resource, sort of like a resource center on campus, like River Valley has the Center for Future. It's a great name. It was a center of learning. That's when you first walk into the building. That used to be the lecture hall. It's now the center. But there's a very strict reason behind not going degree granting yet. And there may be room for that. The amount of cost for accreditation and the amount of administration that it takes to maintain accreditation and the reward or sort of the payoff of accreditation don't match the Lila vision, because we need advisors. And so in our music department, we're talking to some of the top musicians in the country and world. In philosophy, we got that covered. That's my background, so my colleagues are coming in. Literature, same thing. We've got, this weekend I spent the morning with Howard Bloom down at Yale, who endorsed Lila. He's one of the most important influences on my career, mostly because I disagreed with him so fervently. And so we have that base.
So if you know, you were talking about keeping it affordable.
Right.
And bringing in these big names,
Right.
somebody's got to pay them.
Right. That's where person to person and friendship comes in.
Okay.
Most of us are what are called tiering. We tier our activities. So sometimes it's going to be the standard fee, sometimes $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Other times, put me on a plane and get me a room. That's a $750 get. That's not a lot of money to raise.
That these people coming in with
Right.
yeah.
And also, the other cost saver is we can also broadcast them in. So I'm working with the technical support team at Lebanon Opera House to create a TED style / Royal Society level platform where we can broadcast out and also broadcast in. So some people through Google Hangout, and some more advanced technology that's so not shaky, can participate in a gigantic screen. And I've conducted 5 or 6 events like this, and they are fantastic. That's the person. That's
And it's almost like they're there because
it really
it's
is,
the screen
and it's amazing, and it's two-way. Whereas
Oh, so I was going to ask that
yeah,
question next.
it's
too.
absolutely two-way. So you would have a portion of it that is the person, like in a classroom,
Yeah.
20 minutes, 30 minutes of presenting an idea, or we would have an organizing theme. I'm pretty close to the theme right now, and that person would speak that, then immediately have the ability to interact with the audience, and that would happen through multiple webcams coming through a single system broadcast to that person's television screen. Then that person is broadcast to us. It's so easy to do right now. 10 years ago, you're talking a $50,000, $75,000 project. We can probably get this up. It's 500,
Yeah.
750,
And so, as you're saying, some of these that could do it without having them come in
Right,
and
right.
getting their fee and whatever, this could
Right.
be done something.
right. And occasionally you're going to have somebody like some of the let's call them celebrities, both in academic and entertainment. It's not a diva situation. It's just their schedules are so insane and they change so fast. Lila is one of those places where I want to teach people about that. So I've been doing it for actively most of my adult life, but really as a commercial producer, about 3 years. And one of the tricks is you have to understand the personality of the person you're working with and when they're available. And I want to teach that to people because they think, I send an email, they're going to read it and go, oh, I want to come to Lebanon. That's not how it works. That's usually the first step is to get to the management. But I like to show people, like we have a project with a woman named Stephanie Germanato, who's better known as Lady Gaga. So we have this wonderful project for about 10 months. And one of the stipulations in the course agreement is that the student is available within 24 hours of the announcement for her particular portion of the course. Now she'll have pre-recorded stuff. We'll have me, we'll have other assistants, but when she's ready and she wants to talk, you give her the platform, and it's also recorded, so if you missed it, you can get it on YouTube. So there's so many ways, and technology is really our friend right now. And to be perfectly honest, that's kind of where this whole thing started, was a conversation with the Lebanon Opera House about trying to do more education platform work from the Opera House. We couldn't figure out if that was a Lebanon college, that us all reaching out to our various colleagues and kind of independently doing it like a one-off. But I found in my experience is people like programming. They like to know on Wednesday night, twice a month, this thing is happening. Every Sunday afternoon in Lebanon, you've probably noticed this, the Upper Valley, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock, best programming time in the region. I went to a Camerata event for chamber music, and it was packed. It was 2 o'clock on a Sunday, and it was a mixed audience. It wasn't 65 or above, or just people in the middle. It was mixed. So between the Lebanon Opera House's experience and great success in this area, my experience as an educator, but also trying to figure out how to bring these people in and really show them what this town is about. And this is one of the best towns. I'm not just saying this because you're just this is one of the best towns I've ever lived in. And Halloween, that was crazy.
That is, yeah. I live around the corner from you.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
I was, this place is crazy. I was sitting on my porch with my son. We had two bowls full, but $15 worth of candy. And 5 o'clock, we'll trickle. 6:15, I guess maybe everyone gets done with the firehouse and just like invades the town. There was 30 coming from the right, there was 20 coming from the north, and there was like 15 coming from the south. I was wiped out.
We really had the same experience.
Wiped out. And that kind of community experience, I haven't really, well, I've been living more rurally, so like 13, 15 minutes outside of Lebanon or outside of White River. So I was in Quechee for a while, I was up in Bradford for a bit, I'm sorry, in Fairleigh for a bit. But that experience reminded me so much of Bayshore and Islip. Just that we are in, 5:15, that green was just filled with kids. And what a beautiful thing, because sometimes I don't experience that. It's very, insulated,
Yeah.
or it's very, and that kind of spirit is really what we're trying to tap into, because the great thing I remember about Lebanon College, and why I keep coming back to it, is that people could approach the president or the dean and say, I want to teach a class in X. And they would set it up. And, and the person had credentials. Maybe they didn't have a master's, but they had credentials, they had experience. And I found in the last 6 months, because of accreditation, I couldn't do that. I could put them in workshops, right? $125 workshops. But as far as like getting a curricular experience, whether it's in business management or in history, we just weren't allowed to do that. And that's coming back to the original question about accreditation and degree granting. I want to see what happens again, given this particular moment, 2014 in Lebanon, where we have professionals and academics and entrepreneurs and artists, and we have all these people, giving them a hub where we can kind of pull them in and ask those questions again, like the ones that Jen Chapman was dealing with for 17 years was the presidency?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're right. In attending some of the what Opera North does and
Absolutely.
North Country Community Theater, I'm just amazed at the talent in the area.
This is a
That's in
producer's
this area.
dream. It really is. It's been the nicest surprise of moving to this side of the valley again.
So, what have you got a time frame?
Yes.
Okay. Here we are in beginning of November,
Yes.
2014.
Mhm.
And
So the goal is to continue to get seed money. We have some private donations that have already come in. Family and friends and colleagues are helping us.
you ready to all your relatives first.
No, they were tapped 7 years ago for my doctorate, so no, we don't have family support. They like me to go away,
Yeah.
and I don't blame them, because
Yeah.
I would like me to go away sometimes too. But this is unique because we're setting the 5th of January as the start of the first official term. Between now and then, I'm hoping to do at least one big fundraiser, but also start to seed the idea, namely having some courses, working with some small businesses and regional businesses. I'm reaching out especially to Dunkin' Donuts, because Nikos, who runs about 5 or 6 of those Dunkin' Donuts, was very generous with the college, and he and I had talked about the difficulty of training his staff, and really what that means to me is reinforcement. A lot of these guys are the best in the business. They run successful businesses, but they're unable to reinforce the lessons because you either have a rotating, not just clientele, you have rotating staff, but that staff doesn't create a permanent space. And one of the things I've been encouraging small businesses to do is to invest in them. Now, that of course is scary because you're thinking $7,000, $10,000. We're talking, 20, 40 employees coming through a WILA program for under $1,000. And we can do that because it's not just here. See, WILA's not just here. It's always pulling in from other platforms. So what's called Paladin Academy has partnered with me. So we can offer our courses. It goes through Paladin. Paladin is this amazing Coursera level, almost, it's the one I've been looking at too, Pearson's level almost, organization that can keep costs low, because once the WILA course gets brought into them, now we have the 5,000, 8,000 potential students, potential supporters, and by the way, potential fundraisers, to jump in on. So for 20 people, they get the support of this gigantic organization, but it's still local. It's very much, so the cost can be low. So normally that'll be about $5,000. We can say one, and you're gonna bring us 20 employees for $1,000, that's crazy.
Good trainer.
And it's
Yeah.
also some of the best trainers in the world. We're not, my credentials are wonderful, but they are nothing compared to my colleagues, around the world who are some of the business leaders, not just in this country, but we're talking South America, South Africa, Poland. Oh my God, my Polish colleagues are growing faster than any other region I've ever seen. I don't know what happened in that particular economy in the last 5 or 6 years. Because all I know is that we've been importing a lot of workers into the Upper Valley. I didn't know that at home in Poland there was so much activity. So we can tap into that globalization, but rather than it always going out, we're now pulling it back in. Or the perfect scenario is where it's a feedback loop. It's not just we send jobs out because it saves costs. It does until you calculate how much it costs to get that sweater back from Ecuador to here, right? Or we can start to pull talent in. And Lila's really hopes to be that magnet both for the local and the global community.
As we wrap up here this afternoon, if people are really enthused about this, and
Yeah.
your enthusiasm is catchy,
Thanks. I really am.
and so how do somebody contact you?
The best way for me is email. And it's just my life is run through rcbatp@gmail.com. Lila will have its first website this week. It'll be a WordPress site. So if you look up Lila, it may be Lila plus Institute. We're having some domain name issues, but on Twitter it's N1 Academy. So @N1 Academy is the larger organization. And but I'm the primary. I'm treating this like an executive producing scenario.
So again, your email is
rcbatp@gmail.com, and I can also be reached on Facebook. RC Baumtown. That's how you find me. It's not Baumtown. And it actually works to keep the spam bots out. I don't know what it is about the Baumtown, but
Yeah,
RC Baumtown.
keeps it up. Well, we thank you very much for
thank
being
you,
with us
Paul. I
today,
appreciate
and
it.
again, anybody's interested can contact
Please.
you.
Looking
So it's
forward to it.
another program of Points of Interest, and we'll be back next week with another exciting program. Until then.